A croquembouche is a traditional French wedding cake made of cream puffs that are stacked in a tower and bound with spun sugar. To make them, set your oven to 425 and get your mise en place. The main component of a croquembouche is the profiterole, which is just cream puff made out of pâte choux, or choux pastry. It's important to have all your ingredients measured out because this process goes really quick. Now that you have everything measured out, you're going to start by making the pâte choux by boiling your water, butter, sugar, and salt, and then taking off the heat and adding the flour all at once. You're going to put it back on the heat and stir for 3 to 5 minutes until there's a film at the bottom. If you want to spice things up a bit, feel free to knock some flour off into your electric burner. When it's done, plop it in your stand mixer. Wow. Let it cool while you whisk up an egg. That'll glaze the cream puffs and make them pretty. Once it's cooled enough, you can add your eggs one at a time. If you added 2 at a time, just die a little bit inside, but keep going. Now that you're paranoid, add the remaining eggs, 1 at a time. This is the way the French intended you to be. Despite your failures, the pâte choux turned out alright. Pipe the choux pastry out into your parchment-lined baking sheets. Try to make them as even as possible, but don't worry about any little tips. You can smooth those out later. If you haven't gotten around to buying a pastry brush, just use a paper towel to glaze your profiteroles. You're finally ready to bake them for 20 to 25 minutes. Now is also a good time to pray to the pastry gods. If your prayers have been answered, your cream puffs would look something like this. The ideal consistency is crunchy on the outside, but soft on the inside. They should be puffed and regular shaped. If they look anything like this one, I'm sorry, but you failed. Encouraged by your recent success, you can start mising out the ingredients for your pastry cream. Pastry cream, or crème pâtissier, is traditionally a vanilla custard. Today we're going to use semi-sweet chocolate and espresso powder. Don't be afraid to use force if the ingredients are being stubborn. This process takes many hours, so if your cat is getting jealous, feel free to give him some treats so he quiets down while you record. You're going to beat your egg yolks and then add your sugar slowly. Continue beating until it's a thick white thing. The recipe says to add the flour all at once, but I don't like that idea, so I'm adding it in 2 batches. Now you need to scald some milk. There's going to be some flour left over from when you spilled, so you'll probably need to turn on the overhead vent. You can turn it off once it's all burned away. And then take the milk off the heat. You don't want it to burn. While you're waiting for your milk to cool down slightly, you can score the bottoms of the cream puffs. Don't try to do it with one hand while you're holding a camera, because it just doesn't really work. Incorporate the milk slowly so the eggs don't curdle. Then move it onto the stove and put it on high heat. Use a whisk. Spatulas don't really work. Once it's thick, you're going to add your butter. At this point, you can add some extra milk if you think it's going to be too thick to pipe. And then melt your chocolate and espresso over a double boiler. Once everything's melted, you can mix the 2 things together and then put some plastic wrap over your finished custard. It's important to place it directly on top so a film doesn't form while you're chilling it overnight. Croquembouche is a time-sensitive pastry, so you're going to have to assemble it right before you serve it. If you're making this before work, make sure you wake up at 5:30 in the morning so you have time to do it all. The final step is making the caramel to glue everything together. You're gonna just boil a bunch of sugar and water and corn syrup together until it reaches approximately 5,000 degrees. At this point, you may begin assembling your croquembouche. Dip each cream puff into the caramel and stick it to the plate. And try not to burn yourself, but you're gonna burn yourself. So why don't you just mentally prepare to burn yourself over and over again while you build your croquembouche. Once you create your first layer, now you can begin stacking the puffs on top of each other. Now is also the time that you've realized the caramel is kept cooking, and now it's burnt. You're gonna have to make a new batch of caramel, just throw that away. Now that your remaining willpower is gone and you've made a second batch of caramel, begin burning your hands again and completing the next layers of your croquembouche. If your hands are in pain, power through by thinking of how much pain you'll be in if this caramel hardens and you have to make a third batch. It's very hard to get the tower completely even if you're not using a cone. Just do your best. Once you've completed your tower, you can finalize the croquembouche by adding spun sugar. There are many techniques you can use. I'm doing the laziest method, where you just drizzle the caramel around the tower until you're satisfied. This is what a below average croquembouche looks like. Thanks for watching.